The Trump administration rolled out a wave of sanctions against Iran and has given this new stage of warfare a name, Operation Economic Outcast.
But the warnings are not limited to Iran alone. It encompasses countries across the world as Washington threatens secondary sanctions against anyone having economic ties to Iran. The question this raises is whether America's blanket threat paves the way for a global sanctions war, and if at all, Iran can even be an outcast in all of this.
The United States Treasury has sanctioned 60 individuals, entities and vessels. The list encompasses 5 key sectors: digital assets, technology, gold, aviation and shipping. Bessent has also threatened to remove entities from the US dollar system if the money is moved on behalf of Iran.
Every country has a defined timeline to shut down activities we have identified. If they do not take action, we will do so unilaterally through Treasury authorities. For example, every branch of Bank Melay must be shuttered and dark. And let me be clear, any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the US dollar system. The clock just started ticking.
But the Treasury Secretary's warning has no timeline for threatened penalties against world economies or global organizations. The sanctions notification also stopped short of targeting Chinese financial institutions suspected of facilitating Iran's oil trade. China, remember, is the biggest buyer of Iranian oil and serves as a crucial link to the global economy for Tehran. According to the United States, Beijing accounts for 90% of Tehran's oil exports. Other key trade partners include the UAE, Turkey, Iraq, and even India.
China has previously warned the United States that economic pressure does not resolve disputes, while Scott Bessent mentioned that the United States president is, quote, making phone calls to world leaders with specific requests to cease their interactions with Iran. He did not clarify if China's President Xi Jinping will also be on the list to receive a call from Trump. Iran, on its part, continues to dismiss and even mock American sanctions. Tehran has a history of being on a receiving end of Washington's sanctions since 1979.
But this time, Iran is leveraging something it has not done before. This is the geographical and strategic advantage that Iran has over a crucial choke point, which we have been hearing about and talking about for months now, and that's the Strait of Hormuz. Despite America's big announcements to warn Iran and the pressure that it has been putting on the country to accept Donald Trump's terms, Washington is aware of Tehran's advantages. And because of these advantages, reports suggest that US has nudged Pakistan through its army chief, Asim Munir, to bring Iran back to the negotiating table. Munir is already in Tehran for talks.
Iran has been doing 2 things. Meanwhile, the country's leadership is buying time until midterm elections in the United States and simultaneously also negotiating an arrangement with Oman to manage movement of vessels via the Strait of Hormuz. And so these developments bring back the question, does Trump truly have the leverage he needs to pressurize Iran's leadership, or will the force of this strike be blunted with a new age global sanction war? Let's talk to our guest, Johanna LeBlanc. He's a national security and foreign relations law expert. Is now joining us live. She is now joining us live, excuse me for that, on the broadcast from Washington, D.C. Miss Johanna, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome to the broadcast. Do you think these sanctions will work? And Scott Bessent avoided mentioning China. Do you think something will happen against China?
Thank you so much, Eric, for the invitation. I think that the announcement of these secondary sanctions are essentially designed to extend U.S. economic pressure beyond Iran to third country entities that continue certain transactions with the country. However, as you know, with these sanctions, the United States is also hoping that it will create some kind of discontent in the country by the people of Iran, because Iran as a state is no stranger to sanctions. The United States has imposed sanctions on Iran for more than a decade. So at the end of the day, the people who will be impacted by these sanctions are really the people, right? The ordinary citizens in Iran. So the question is, we know there will be discontent, right? But the question is, will there be discontent towards the United States? Or would it be towards the broader international system? And secondly, I think that the secondary sanctions were imposed because the United States is facing a midterms in November. And as you know, there's a huge affordability crisis in the country at this moment. We are looking at a $40 trillion a debt ceiling at this moment, and groceries are high, gas is high as a result of this war. So this is a measure to please the American people and to show to the American people that the United States is taking all the necessary measures to put an end to this conflict. But I don't think this is sufficient. I believe that it will take more than the imposition of these secondary sanctions to find a resolution to this conflict.
Yana, which is what, I was asking next. What would it be that would get Iran back to the negotiating table? This is something that United States has been trying for a while now. Iran refuses to budge from its stance. And now the Donald Trump administration looks almost desperate to end this war quickly, resorting to secondary sanctions, having these kinds of announcements time and again, back from military to economic sanctions, now economic steps to sort of control Iran. But what would it be that would really get Iran back to the negotiating table and agree to the American demands?
I think it's in the best interest of the United States to get Iran back to the table, to the negotiation table. As you know, with the midterms coming up in November, the Democrats are scheduled to take over the House and possibly the Senate. So the Republicans are very concerned about the kind of power that the president will have, because when you have a president at the White House and does not have the House nor the Senate to push some of its policies from the legislative branch, it makes it very difficult. So what I do think the United States will need is the United States will need support from allied nations to bring Iran back to the table. As you mentioned earlier, Pakistan is supporting the United States. This is not something the U.S. can do by itself. The United States is going to need to rely and get the support of the international community to find a resolution to this conflict. Because again, the fact of the matter is that Iran is no stranger to these sanctions. Iran, and because of different methods that countries have to bypass some of these sanctions sometimes, Iran can very well survive under these various secondary and primary economic sanctions. But the American people are very concerned because of the affordability crisis. I think that's the main objective here, and that's the issue that is pushing the United States to really find a resolution to this conflict.
Yana, quickly before we let you go, isn't it sort of convenient and almost unfair on the allies of America to be helping out United States in a war that it started on its own? It never asked the allies that time. Now it's asking for help from the allies.
Absolutely. I think you do have a point, but at the end of the day, we are a global village. It is an international community, and we all belong to this community together. So if there is escalation of a potential if this continues to escalate, I think everybody will be impacted in the entire world, because as we know, our economies are gravely interconnected, and certainly the Strait of Hormuz, which just about every country in the world benefits from it. So I think it is in the interest of the entire nation, the international community, to work with the United States and help find some kind of resolution to this conflict and put an end to it. Because at the end of the day, the people who are really impacted are not the politicians. It is really the American people, and certainly the people of Iran and people from all over the world.
Well, let's see how this economic outcast by President Trump will pan out eventually for Iran and also for the globe. But Ms. Johanna LeBlanc, thank you very much for your insights and for talking to us today.
Thank you.